Got another interesting panel for you, and this is, again, something that could have been categorized within the category of taxes, but Peter and Mitch and Larry felt like this was special enough to the point where we needed to have a special discussion on that, on present use value. In 1973, the General Assembly recognized that property used as agricultural land, horticultural land, or forest land was used differently than commercial or residential property, and it should be taxed differently. So they determined that this land should be taxed based on its present use value instead of its highest and best use value. That's how present use value came into being. Now, to help the county governments in figuring out exactly what the values were that they needed to use for farmland or forest land, they set up a use value advisory board under the supervision of the NC Cooperative Extension Service, and each year that board submits to the Department of Revenue a use value model which estimates the value statewide based on the average cash rents. Now, in recent years, present use value has been extended to several additional classes of land, including land under conservation easement, working waterfront land, and also wildlife habitat. And there are some others who would like to see this broadened and expanded even more. But there's some concern on behalf of the counties throughout the state, particularly the rural counties in our state, that expanding this present use value would end up being a property tax increase for all the residents of the county. And so this panel is going to discuss how tightening the tightening state budget and the present system and the tax codes are impacting the county, how well this system is working. We've got a panel of 4 people with us, and I think you're going to find this an interesting discussion also. Senator Brent Jackson is here from the legislative point of view to be able to talk to us about that. David Baker, who is from the North Carolina Department of Revenue and the Local Government Division. Stan Duncan, who is the Henderson County Tax Assessor, and Julian Philpott, who is the Secretary and the General Counsel for the North Carolina Farm Bureau. As we have done before, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to make a brief statement. Each of you make a brief statement, and then we will open up to questions. Again, understanding, I think all of you have watches, we are going to stop at 5 p.m. Okay. Julian, I'm going to start with you.
Present use value has been a great program. Without it, we wouldn't have the farm acreage that we have. But I think as we look at it, as Tom has mentioned, we've got folks who want to expand the program, and as we look at it from the standpoint of the Use Value Advisory Board, and David, Stan, and I are all 3 on that advisory board, we've got to be careful in how we do it because there is an impact on the counties, and we want to make sure that we've got a program that remains viable and strong.
Stan?
I would agree with what Julian said about the validity of the program. It's unfortunate, I think, that one of the greatest challenges to the program is its own success. And that is, before we started the present use value program in '73, we had nothing like it in our statutes. And it's been so successful doing what it was intended to do that a lot of other groups, special interest groups in the state, have tried to piggyback on the model, if you will. And one of the challenges that we see sometimes is I don't want to see the present use value program diluted in terms of its significance to property owners. If the General Assembly sees fit to create a different type of program for some of these special interests, that's okay, but let's don't dilute the present use value program and the benefits that it renders.
David?
Go on with Julian. Stan, this was a very simple program when it started back in '73, and it was mainly for agricultural land. Land had to have a highest and best use other than agriculture. It was mainly in the urban counties. That's been expanded throughout all 100 counties now. So it's been a very successful program, but it's also a program that due to the growth in it, due to opening the door up, I guess you would say, to allow more and more land in and different types of ownership and different types of property into the program, it's become a very difficult program to administer by the counties and the county assessors across the state. So the biggest challenge I see for the program probably is the fact that North Carolina is a very diverse state today. If you look at it over the last 20 years, the population has exploded in North Carolina. There's a lot of different thoughts and processes coming into the state. So I think you have to be careful when you look at this program with all the other things that are copycatting it or eroding the tax base. Anytime something goes off the tax books, it shifts the tax burden toward the homeowners, and it also hurts the people that are in this program.
All right.
So I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
Senator, your perspective.
Well, I'd like to speak mainly from a farmer's perspective, because that's what I do. As most of you that know me in this room, I am a full-time farmer. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, but from a farmer's perspective, it's allowed us to have some consistency in our property tax. And I think we need to continue it as is, because if we don't, we're going to get caught up, even though we're in a recession currently, and land values for commercial and residential areas has sort of stabilized or even fallen in a lot of cases. If we were to get caught back up into the 2007, 8, and 9 years of inflating land values, it would be detrimental to the agriculture community across this state. And we have to keep in mind that, yes, there are some other things that are very important, but agriculture is still the #1 industry in this state and will continue to be so. So and from the senator's point of view, he's going to be listening very diligently to see what, if anything, is added to it to weaken it, because I will certainly not be supporting anything to weaken our current use value.
Stan, I want to get to this business about possibly raising property taxes for everybody if we expand this. Walk us through this and tell us how this would happen.
Well, I think anytime you add a new benefit program, that benefit program is usually addressed to a very specific niche in our population base, in our property tax base. And so when you provide any benefit to any additional niche, then for everyone in this room, if you're a property owner of a single family home, then the tax on that home will go up residually because of the increase in the tax rate.
So we basically have lowered the county's base for taxable land. Is that what's going on?
We've shifted, if you will, some of the emphasis. And the one group that until you're elderly or disabled, your home is going to be at 100%. That acre of home site and your home will be at 100% until you're elderly or disabled. So you bear the brunt of all these other little niche programs that get created from time to time.
Now, from a county point of view again, and I'm not picking on you and I don't want to dwell on you, but on the one hand, what we're hearing is that we're losing farmland every year. I mean, there's less and less land under cultivation every single year. There's less and less land forestry and so forth like that, because we are developing. We got 100,000 people coming in here. We got to put them somewhere. All right, so isn't the tax base broadening enough to the point where even if we did expand present use value, that it wouldn't raise taxes for everybody?
Well, I hope most of those people are moving to Wake County and not to some of our other smaller counties, but I think Wake can handle it. What happens, though, is these demands of growth are in our major metropolitan areas. They're not in our rural counties for the most part. Then I think from an administrative standpoint, from the county point of view, it takes, I'm very fortunate I have a staff of 1.5 people that can really dedicate their time to present use value and exemptions. Most counties aren't that fortunate. And so for us, that we spend a lot of time sitting down with property owners and explaining the program to them and doing compliance reviews and giving them time to understand. We have people in property right now in the present use value program that don't know they're in the program. And so you have to spend time with people. And for most counties, they don't have the resources of people, personnel, or the technology sometimes to be able to spend that time.
We talked about the threat of expanding present use value. I mean, who are the groups that actually want to be involved in this, David? Who are some of the groups you've heard talk about want to be involved and want to be part of the present use value?
Was just a last several sessions of the General Assembly, we've added things like conservation easements, groups, wildlife is something that we've kind of added to PUV. It's a separate program, but it mirrors PUV. A lot of your conservation groups that would like to see it, I think, to some degree turn into more of a green space type program than necessarily a present use value where it's agriculture-based, forest and horticulture. So I think that's some of the things that we see is that there are a lot of people that just want to hold their land and not necessarily use their land. And it is a program of use, and that's the key, I think the key.
But Julian, aren't there some other categories of people that would like to have this exemption or this preference?
As far as categories, I think mainly it's folks, as we're seeing, as we're having this movement towards local food production and emphasis on purchasing your food from a local supplier for food safety and freshness. We've got a lot of folks who want to have smaller acreages qualify. We've had discussion even down to 1 acre of production, and a lot of the pressure is coming from the metropolitan areas where they don't have large tracts of land due to the development. We've got a very active group in Mecklenburg County that would like to see down, I think, to 1 acre production that would qualify.
How about golf courses? I mean, is that highest and best use for a golf course?
Now we've had the Golf Course Association, as I understand, they are ready to talk to the General Assembly about, I guess, for turf grass,
Senator, here it comes.
turf grass to have golf courses qualify for present use value. And I don't know, production agriculture, the program was put in for production farms. And the farms are producers of income. That income is rolled over in the local economy. But in addition to that, the land, this open land, farmland, really doesn't demand much in the way of services. So when you're looking at the type of land that are net contributors to the local economy, local revenue stream in the county, manufacturing and agriculture are generally net contributors, where when you've got a subdivision and you've got a lot of houses, children that are living in those homes, you're asking for schools, you need transportation, you need infrastructure improvements, and you don't need that on open farmland. And so,
all right, Senator, we just heard Bob Rucho talking about the fact that we're going to level out this tax base, we're going to make it fair for everybody. Isn't this going to still be considered a tax preference in the tax code? Is this under threat in this new tax reform bill?
This has not been discussed in any of the conversations I've had with Senator Rucho, and I would like to say, Tom, at this point in time, Senator Rucho certainly deserved the round of applause you give him a while ago, because he has been a leader in trying to come out with some tax forms. And Tom, you're also right, he's been cut 1,000 different ways. And I've probably done about half of those myself when it comes to his proposal on taxing the business licensing fee and net worth. I tried to explain to him how most of us farmers, we are cash poor, and the richest day of our life is the day we die. And pretty much that's the way it goes. And I told him that his business licensing proposal was sort of like a property tax, and I didn't know anyone in my industry that enjoyed property taxes. So this is a good thing we're talking about here. Land use has not been discussed, but Julian, I'm glad you brought out that point. That is a very point that needs to be brought out in this committee meeting or conference this afternoon. Is open land requires nearly zero attention from any county or municipality. And I think the North Carolina Department of Agriculture has some figures that shows for every dollar contributed on property tax to open land, we get around between 30 and 40 cents in services. For every dollar contributed in a housing development, we spend $1.20 to 30 cents to get that dollar.
Wow.
So that is some figures we need to keep in mind here, and when we're talking about this land use, so we are getting the most bang for our buck. And I don't think, and I'm little, and hush, you can tell me to hush anytime, Tom, but I'm a firm believer in what a bona fide farm is. Those of us that make our living off of the farm 100% of their income needs to be derived from that farm. And if they're attending, and I'm all for these folks growing an acre or 5 acres of this or 6 acres of this, and there's some high commodity crops out there that could probably do better than I could on 1,000 acres at that rate. But to be a bona fide farm in North Carolina under this program, you need to have 10 acres to qualify. And I think that should continue to be the minimum. Because my argument has been 2 years ago when we actually established what a true bona fide farm was in North Carolina, those folks that are growing 1 and 2 or less than 10 acres, 90%, my bet would be 90% of the time they have an off-farm job. That is not supporting their family and their income unless, as I said, they were growing something illegal. But, but that's sort of my take on that.
All right. David, I want to get to, what other threats or challenges can you see to this PUV system?
I think and Stan and I was talking about this earlier, Stan used to work for us and left and went to Henderson County. And our goal at the department is to try to get all 100 counties, of course, to administer a very complicated program consistently across the state. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for the counties across the state. So I see that as a challenge to make sure that we want people in the program that are farmers or forest people, horticulture folks, and we want the program to be a valid program. So when someone does look at someone in the program, yeah, they should be in the program. And so that's the key to us, is to make sure that it's administered as the law requires and consistently across the state.
All right, I'm going to do the same thing with this panel that I've done with the other panels that we've had up here today. I'm going to ask you to look in your crystal ball, tell me what's going to happen with PUV, and if there are going to be changes made when.
I think that we will see some tweaks to the present use, or at least attempts to tweak the present use value system.
And explains what that is.
And I think, we've got some legislators that, because we got the challenge where it's not implemented, standardized in all 100 counties by assessors, although they work very diligently with them. There will be some tweaks, particularly with forestry, on the management. A lot of the management plans that were developed early on had a specific cut date or to thin property. Due to market conditions, weather conditions, the market conditions with timber, this may not be, you may have had a management plan that said 2013 you need to thin. Well, this may not be the year to do it to maximize money that you can get from the property. So we need to have some flexibility there. And I think there's some legislators who are working with some landowners who've had issues where there may need to be some more flexibility there, and that is a challenge. At the same time,
is that particularly a challenge since we've got so many, I call them rookie legislators now?
I think due to the number of changes we had back when I started lobbying about 25 years ago, we had a lot of active farmers and folks who were, at least the first generation off the farm. We don't have that now. We've got a few more maybe who are active farmers like Senator Jackson, but for the most part, the educational process we have now due to the turnover. We had 500 years, I guess, collectively of experience that walked out of the building at the end of last session. We've got a huge educational component here, and this is a complicated program. There aren't many attorneys across the state who really understand it, and that's where we have issues with estate planning. There may be ownership, and the ownership requirements are very, very complicated. We've got a lot of attorneys as they're looking at estate planning. They may draft something that's good for estate planning or income tax, but from a present use value standpoint, that LLC that may be good for estate plans may not qualify for use value.
Stan, look in your crystal ball. Tell me what's going to happen.
I think there will be tweaks. The history of this program has been every year, long session since the General Assembly created present use value, there's been some tweaks made to the program. There'll still be some. My crystal ball is kind of cloudy on exactly what tweaks. I am concerned.
You're the first one that said that today.
Well, I'm telling you. I am concerned about the representation in the General Assembly. Senator Jackson may have more information, but it just seems to me that years and years ago we had much better representation from the farming community, the agricultural community, walking the halls of the General Assembly than today. And the third thing I'll mention just real quick is most of our data is out there on the internet from the counties. We're very transparent. And in my county, a lot of retirees from places outside of North Carolina have nothing better to do than to get on the internet and look and see what their neighbor's paying in taxes down the road. And I get more. I really don't have any problem in my county that, unless Danny or Jimmy know of something here, that dealing with farmers. My difficulty is trying to explain to people who are from other states why this is a good program.
Yeah, don't you love these people? They come here from other states and they talk to you about how wonderful it is, and then after they've been there 6 months, they want to tell you how to fix it.
I love them.
You know, I think I've been doing this 15 years. They've never applauded the moderator before. David, what's going to happen here? Tell us about what's going to happen with PUV.
I'm kind of like Stan. I'm not sure I have a clearer picture of that, but I will say this. Present use value is a good program. It's a needed program. It has been for a long time. I don't see it going anywhere. I think we do have to be careful not to allow too many major changes in it. It is a program of production, which means you've got people in it that are managing their land in some way to produce a product, and that product's then sold. And as long as our focus is that, and it continues to be that, then the program will survive, because it's a very needed program.
All right, Senator, the legislature always has the last word, so you're going to have the last word.
Well, I don't know about that, Tom, and I will say this to your getting applause from moderator. Most times moderators don't say anything worth applauding. So,
So the reason I haven't been getting applause before was, okay, I got that.
From the Senate side, I have heard no talk of anything pertaining to the present use value. Now, let me prefix that or postfix it, whatever you want to call it. Anything is possible on Jones Street. If y'all have been around longer than a year or two, you understand that. But from the Senate standpoint, we have not discussed this at all behind closed doors or in open doors. I mean, the present use value has not been. If I was to say that there could be a tweak, my proposal would be we tweak it a little more friendlier when it comes to forest acreage and the management plans, and try and get it a little more statewide regulated, because I do understand there's a lot of difference between counties. Now, what they do on the House, I can't tell you, but I still have not heard anything concerning tweaking or changing the present use value.
Folks, I hope you agree this has been an enlightening discussion, and we want to thank Senator Brent Jackson, David Baker, from the DOR, Stan Duncan from Henderson County, and Julian Philpott. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I just came from Disney, where they have MGM Studios, and the director always says at the end, "That's a wrap." This is a wrap. Thank you all very much.
Well, before we wrap completely, Tom Campbell, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll agree with me, these panels this afternoon have been great. Have you enjoyed them? They've been just... Our goal in presenting these panels this afternoon was not only to let you learn, but certainly to make you think about some of the issues facing our state, facing agriculture, and certainly I think we've done that. We're a professional organization. We want to treat our folks like professionals, and this afternoon we got a real professional to moderate these panels. Tom Campbell is a tribute not only to this industry, he's a friend of agriculture, he's a friend of North Carolina Farm Bureau. More importantly, I look at Tom Campbell as sort of a conscience of the state. He makes us think about a lot of things. Tom Campbell, thank you for moderating these panels. Thank you for your friendship, and just thank you for being with us this afternoon. Let's give him a hand, folks.